class today. We are hoping that you've learned from our session, and as much as we have tried to give back to you, we would appreciate you giving back to the community with your learnings, your experiences later on. I just want to give you a few career tips before we bring our panel discussion, the panelists into the call. We're going to have a one-to-one fireside discussion, probably about 15 minutes. But before that, I'll spend a couple of minutes introducing you to some aspects of Salesforce or Salesforce statistics that would be useful for you for your careers in the long term as well as in the short term. As you can see from my slide, majority of you are developers here. I think about 78%. And then, of course, there are a few business analysts also. And you're trying to differentiate yourself in the Salesforce ecosystem you're differentiating yourself in your careers by learning Salesforce and getting into a career around the Salesforce ecosystem. So in order to do that, as you can see in this slide, you would notice that due to COVID, that all of us have been impacted. This IT industry numbers. The entire IT industry has been impacted about 8 to 9% in 2020 alone. Year over year growth since the last year. So 2018-19 versus 2019-20 has been an 8% downturn. And you can see from, this is an industry list, as you can see, the leftmost is the most impacted. The minus 35-40% are the entertainment, air transport, as well as restaurants and hotels, right? Those three segments are really, really impacted. In order to position yourself in the job market or a long-term career, I think the space that I would suggest you delve in is towards the right side, which is all the light blue or greenish blue that you see, health insurance. Of course, telecommunications, as you've known, Zoom has 200 million users a day. Of course, there are not too many companies like Zoom. There is only Cisco, VMware, and a few others. That's probably not a very large job sector, but telecommunications related to mobile, there are so many other aspects of it that are beyond these communication companies. Then, of course, you can see utilities, government, banking, right? So there is some of these segments. This is something I pulled out of Google from a Gartner report that came only about 4 or 5 days back. So that gives you an idea of where you can position yourself from a vertical standpoint. The next slide I'm going to show you, this is a bit dated. It's about 4 to 6 months old slide, but it kind of reflects which areas of the Salesforce ecosystem you want to be concentrating on. And in this case, as you can see, the highest growth in the last year has been field service. So field service lighting and service cloud, if you combine that. Of course, FSL is on top of service cloud. And then, of course, Heroku is okay. And the bigger numbers, you see Salesforce CPQ. There is a few other verticals. These are all public information that I've got. You can search for Salesforce economy and get this. So I want to give you a vertical perspective and a horizontal perspective. Vertical meaning the industry, and horizontal meaning the tools within the Salesforce ecosystem that you want to concentrate on. And of course, Salesforce as a company itself is foraying into and has already forayed into some industries like financial services for a while. Manufacturing was last year. Consumer goods industry is last year plus this year. There was a third release of their consumer goods cloud that just came last week. And then, of course, retail, wholesale. There are a few other verticals that Salesforce already has in place. And of course, health cloud, which is also a prominent piece of the Salesforce ecosystem. So I would suggest, apart from being developers or business analysts, you concentrate on certain aspects of this platform and ecosystem. Because when myself and my fellow panelist Velu got introduced to Salesforce, there was only Force.com platform, Sales Cloud, and Service Cloud, nothing else, right? So our scope for learning is very limited. It was easy, but now it's far bigger. It's at least 30 or 40 times bigger than what we were before, what we saw before. This is a slide that you would have seen multiple times. It gives you an idea of all the different certifications. I wanted to show one thing where if you look at the right side, the architect's track. So if you're a developer and you want to differentiate yourself in the market, short term or long term, if you crack any of these exams, there is a pyramid you can see. If you just search on Google for Salesforce architect pyramid, you will see a pyramid, and there is left side of the pyramid is application architect, right architect. The right side is system architect, and both together they evolve into you becoming a CTA, which is Certified Technical Architect. That only tests the platform. So the whole puzzle is so big, and you're only, as an architect, you're only dealing with these exams deal only with the Force.com platform and nothing beyond that. Doesn't deal with CPQ, B2B commerce, B2C commerce, Einstein analytics, all those other things, right? So you have to decide a certain direction, and I wanted to show you the architect direction, but that doesn't cover everything. You just for your idea. So if you become a certified architect, you in the process of it, it'll take you 2 or 3 years. Within that, on the job, you learn various other ecosystem components like CPQ or Commerce Cloud. That adds value to your entire certification career. That's what I want to emphasize. This slide talks about, as you can see, the rightmost is the architect certifications that I just mentioned. And then you have specialist certifications for CPQ, there's one, Pardot, there's one, there's Marketing Cloud. So there are various things, right? So there's a big ecosystem, and the way you navigate within it is also important. As you can see, there are some suggestions I have here on this slide. Of course, trailheads you already know. Dreamforce, there is talk that Dreamforce might not happen this year, but at least for our knowledge or for our own benefit, the Trailhead X conference in San Francisco is going to happen in the next few weeks. You can check on the internet. It is virtual, so you can do a lot of learning from that. And Trailhead X is one of the best learning content conferences in the world. So I would strongly suggest you subscribe for that, and it probably will be free to everyone. I don't know the details, but you can register online and participate in that conference and attend that. So let's move on to our panel discussion. I wanted to throw these ideas at you all, and then we of course have one of my good friends and currently a senior director at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. He heads the Center of Excellence at that company. A very long time Salesforce veteran, almost 20 years into Salesforce. He's also the head of the Chicago Develop Group, and a very, very long career person, probably one of the oldest Salesforce guys I know. I've known him only after that, but 20 years is a long time. So, Velu, how are things in Chicago?
Pretty good, Andy. Thank you for having me today.
All right. So as I mentioned, you have lots of experience in Salesforce. I have about 12 years of Salesforce, and the first thing I did when I learned Salesforce was I was doing a proposal for a company called ADC Communications in Minneapolis. And to do that proposal, I had to learn the platform. So I went to a whole bunch of videos. Even at that time in 2008, when I did that, there were sizable number of videos, at least 100, 200 of them. There was a book, a PDF called Creating On-Demand Apps. There was a book called Salesforce Cookbook. About 15, 20 days, I was able to figure out what Salesforce is. And the beauty of the platform that I saw was the ability to create objects and fields, the ability to share records, like particularly the role-based hierarchy, the profiles. Many of the application security tenets of the platform which exist today existed at that time itself. You've probably seen that too. And I know when I used to do Java, and for the Java developers here, I'm sure you know Groovy. And Groovy was a platform where you can write some Java classes with some fields. It'll create the automatic, it'll automatically create the database objects for you, the DAO classes, and all those things necessary for Oracle or MySQL or Postgres. And that was cool. But this is even cooler because it's all on a screen. It becomes much more simpler. So what attracted you, Palani, Velu, when you entered the system, the Salesforce ecosystem?
First of all, thank you for having me, everyone. Great presentation. I learned quite a bit today. There was a flow presentation, particularly was very well done. And then the other one, but it brings back my memories. So I was able to refresh my skill set there a little bit. So my experience with Salesforce started in June 13, 2000. That's when I've got my first instance or whatever that I signed up with Salesforce. Actually, at that time, there was nothing for me to be attracted to the product. I was using Microsoft Exchange Server, the very old legacy system that many of you may not even have heard of it. I had to take a backup on my data that I was doing. I was running a consulting company, and then everything that I did, it was all on server and client server based. So when Salesforce sent me an email that, if you want to, if you're tired of taking backup, can you consider using something called, they didn't use the word cloud those days. You can do it using internet or online. That's how I ended up using Salesforce. Since 2000, June, I have never looked back anything outside of Salesforce. My career, all around Salesforce, ran a consulting firm. I ran a sales team, marketing team, service team. I had an onshore, offshore model to support my customers. So it was all about using Salesforce ecosystem. I developed an App Exchange product. And when we finally exited the company 3 years ago, I sold the company to a large company, and I ended up going back to the corporate world, and I'm enjoying every bit of it. So it's a journey. Unlike today, if you look back 15, 20 years forward, now there is a lot of opportunity. I am so excited for people who are attending the call today. I don't think that this is the best time for you to learn something new on Salesforce. The opportunity is tremendous, and there are basics that you need to do. As you have seen the demo here, you need to learn, number one, the administration. Number two, whatever the platform developer that you have learned. From here, you can go wherever you want to go. So Andy, it was not more like what attracted. I just accidentally got into Salesforce very early in my career. And a lot of people who are starting your career, if you're early stage in your career, I think Salesforce platform will be a great platform to latch on to.
Okay, thank you for your interesting insight, Velu. Um, I have known that in 2008 itself, Salesforce had a client called Japan Post. That was the largest customer for Salesforce, and they had 45,000 users way back in 2008.
Right.
I know State Farm has hundreds of thousands of users, and I know your company is also has a huge user base. But of course, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I think, is statewide, right? Each state has a different, or at least a club of states have um, Blue Cross Blue Shield brand, right? It's not one conglomerate like the other companies. So how do you use Salesforce? Can you give us some insight that'll be useful to us?
Right. I mean, I can't get to specifics because of the confidentiality, but I can tell you how we use Salesforce. We have several thousand users, several instances. When we use Salesforce, we use it for three purposes: sales, service, and marketing. Right. So that is the ecosystem that Salesforce has been built. On top of it, if you have seen the demo, Samir, that you a couple of slides back, you showed the industry. So we are in the healthcare industry, specifically on the payer side, insurance information. When we look at insurance, whether it is in the US, I am not 100% sure how it works in India, but when you are a large insurance company across multiple states, you have a lot of governance. So if you look at Salesforce, it's a huge platform with thousands and thousands of users, multiple instances. So the biggest challenge for us is to make sure that we are creating an excellent experience to the end users. Salesforce is not a cheap platform. It's pretty expensive. A lot of you know. So when you make such a kind of investment, and when you're trying to bring a good experience to the end users as well as your customers in the payer industry, everything is called membership experience. If you're an insured person, you're called a member. So it's all translated into the membership. So coming back to Andi, it is all about providing the experience. So my job is to make sure that my team enables the customers, which are internal customers, to provide the best possible experience to the end users. End users could be a customer, which is an employer who wants to insure their employees, members who come to us on a regular basis. We have about 16 million members, insured people. So when they come to us, how well we provide them the service using the health cloud, the service cloud platform. And then we also have a lot of providers. Providers are nothing but the hospitals and individual doctors. So we bring them to our network so we can provide them the best possible onboarding experience. And then we have brokers who bring business to us. So typically in the insurance industry, I'm sure you all heard of the brokers, and then brokers bring a lot of business to us. So this is such a big ecosystem, and keep in mind, Salesforce has been there for 20 years, but these companies have been there for 40 years and 50 years, 60 years. So the transitioning into a modern platform like Salesforce for companies like it's a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, but it's called Healthcare Services Corporation. There are so many other organizations. United Health is a very, very large company, and there is Anthem is a large company. These companies are large. So for them to use Salesforce, it's a big, big mind shift. It's a paradigm shift for them. So it is an ongoing challenge. The one thing, if they don't change, industry will teach them a big lesson. So we are all learning, and we are in the process of fast transformation. And that's my job, is to help to enable the transformation.
Okay, thank you for your insights. So it's all about digital transformation, particularly in post-COVID. There is going to be a lot of investment in that aspect.
Right.
To serve the customers in the most efficient way, right?
Right.
My next question is targeted towards, I want to hear from you how developers can nurture the ability to know more about what problems they are solving, because I've seen many developers go and ask them to write, right? So they don't interact with the business side very often enough, and particularly in this completely distributed workforce that we are going to face in the next few years. How does a developer or a team of developers get to know what they are solving in more detail than what they see on a storyboard? What is your career tips or career guidance as to people to progress their career in the right direction, not just code, but also understand their vertical, the problems they're solving in various aspects?
Right. So no, that's a good topic we can discuss, and I think that'll take at least a couple of days for me to answer, but I'll make it as simple and as quickly as possible. Let me ask anybody who is presented today, Praveen or Srivatsa, how many developers are in the ecosystem according to Salesforce? Not Andi, but let me see whether any of your presenters answers this question.
Probably 10 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who looked at the last time as of yesterday? I didn't do it today. Went to the developer.salesforce.com. At the bottom, it says how many million members. Can somebody look at it right now and tell me? Go to developer.salesforce.com or a blog.
6.0 million developers.
There you go. We have 6 million developers according to Salesforce. So when you have 6 million developers, and if you're entering into Salesforce, so you will be 6 million plus. So there is huge amount of these are people that Salesforce thinks are developers. I'm pretty sure there will be a lot more developers out there than what Salesforce tells you. Like, I consider myself as a developer too. Once upon a time, I used to code. So what does it mean for specifically people who want to go into the develop? So developer is an entry. It is that is what how I look at it. It's an entry to get into a corporation is a developer. Or so when you get into the, you can always, what happens in the, even today, many countries, if you are a graduate student or undergraduate student as a computer science, it's easy to get into a company if you have good grade skill, good grades, and so on and so forth. But if you're so people who have already been working and they want to change their career into a Salesforce career, and they have already worked as a developer or they've been working as a developer, so they can get into the Salesforce ecosystem. But the simplest way for you to do, there are things that as a developer or anybody, Salesforce, once you get into the Salesforce ecosystem, the biggest challenge for all of us, including Andi and I, how do I focus? Where do I go? What do I do? And this is also going to change as you progress in your career. If you go back, Andi, can you go back to a couple of slides?
Which one?
Can you go back to a couple of slides? There was a, yeah,
Oh,
this
okay.
one. This is perfect.
This one?
No, that slide. No, the one you had tables and columns, right? The path, not this one.
Oh, this one. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, this one. So
You see that?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an excellent slide. I actually would like to have this slide if you don't mind, just for my own education, just a reminder. So this is if you look at it, developer, advanced consultant, marketing, and to me there is an opportunity, also a distraction. I've seen people taking 15 certifications, 25 certifications, but how do I use the skills? Where do I go and use the skills? This is where you go back to the one. Can you go back to one slide, one more slide, the industry where you showed financial services cloud? Yes. So you pick a track, whether you are a consultant, whether you're a developer or an admin. To me, to be successful, what Salesforce for the last 4 years, from 2016 onwards, they have started specializing in the industries. So as Andi said, as you remember, Andi, you said, 10 years ago, it was a sales cloud and service cloud. When I started, it was only 5 or 6 tabs. And I never paid a single dollar for about 3-4 years for Salesforce. Actually, for first 2 years, I didn't pay anything. After that, my licensing cost was $5 per user per month. Now you can imagine it's $400. If you can go as much as $400. So right now, if you want to speed up your career, pick a track, either a developer or a consultant, whichever you like it. But I always, if you're a brand new entry into the Salesforce ecosystem, I would go with an admin and developer and pick an industry, but learn about the industry. If you're a developer, I think Praveen, was it Praveen did the flow?
Yep.
Right. So when you, Praveen, if you look at the flow, you have done a great job of explaining. But imagine if you can understand why you are doing it. For example, if you're there in the healthcare industry, how does healthcare industry work? Everything that you do inside Salesforce, every code you touch, you are touching ultimately the bottom line of the company. So in the Sales Cloud, let me ask people here, what is the most important opportunity, object in the Sales Cloud?
I think you gave away the answer. It's opportunity.
There you go. So I think there's, accidentally gave away the answer, but it is a good answer, I guess. So, but if you are, as a developer, Andy, if you're looking at developing, if you're suggesting people to develop the skills, be competitive, learn the industry. Salesforce has got a lot of trails on Trailhead. You can start looking at financial services cloud or healthcare, because the customer, as you've seen the progression, some of you have been working for 3 years, some of you have been working for 10 years, some of you are newer people has got a lot more opportunity, because you're jumping directly into the industry trend. So I would look at a specific track, specific industry, and also choose a mentor. Have a good mentor. There are a lot of people out there in the industry, so they can help you to guide you. And I think that is my recommendation, Andy. And as you progress, you can always change. Things will change, your interest will change, and then you can accordingly position yourself. So that's my 2 cents onto how you stay competitive. At the same time, it is more than competitive, it is how satisfied are you in doing what you're doing. It's not writing a flow, but behind the flow, how am I contributing to the bottom line of the company, which is the revenue, or how am I contributing to solve the customer service problems quickly. So if you can tie that, what you're doing, I think that will be very, very powerful for you as to when you are building your career. So that's my 2 cents, Andy.
Thank you. The last point was very, very relevant, right? How what you're doing is aligning with the company's vision as well as the customer's vision, right? So if you don't satisfy the customer, if you're a consulting company, we don't get income. While if you work for a direct company, then obviously what we do aligns with what they do, and there has to be a fairly strong alignment. Thank you very much. This now comes our last question. I know you volunteer a lot, right? I mean, apart from your full-time job as a senior director, you also do volunteer in the Salesforce community as a group leader, as well as the Tamil community of Chicago. I remember last July when I was there at the Federation of Tamil Singers of North America convention, you presented very nicely the first opening session of the second day. So how are you able to juggle your balls around?
I think it's just the attitude, Andy. I don't know whether, we all have a limited time. Everybody has limited time, and everybody's, I'm at the stage where giving back is much more important to me than just taking. Gimme versus what can I give? And the ecosystem has helped me as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a corporate leader. It contributed a lot. Many people in my career mentored me, coached me, helped me, supported me every way. So I thought for the last 10 years, I've been always, my mindset is all about, okay, how can I help? It's not for the help for the sake of helping, just getting involved and make that as a part of your life. I spend quite a bit of time reading. I attended yesterday one YouTube group. I learned about the extensions, Salesforce. If you're using Visual Studio, there are a lot of extensions that you can do. So when I go back to my work, then I can work with my architect. Okay, can we look at these kind of things? So I think just the simple attitude and being humble, there is a lot of people can take help from you, especially in the COVID-19 situation. There's a lot of need out there. So I think just having that attitude, prioritizing your day-to-day life. One thing that I do, if you look at everybody's, we all have smartphones, but we use smartphones most of the time on WhatsApp or Facebook. So one thing I did, I removed my Facebook from my cell phone. I don't look at my WhatsApp. I completely turned off my WhatsApp notification so that I get less distraction. And I'm sure we all have that. Biggest distractions is the Facebook and WhatsApp. I'm not against WhatsApp. I'm not against Facebook. But can I spend some time wisely by reading a tailored module or go to a Harvard Business Review to read something so that we can give it back? And there is a lot of virtual volunteer that people need help. So I spend some time there. User group is something that I've been doing it for the last 8 years or so. It's just the prioritizing it. It's nothing right or wrong. And fortunately, my family supports very well. My wife, she's a big supporter of Salesforce ecosystem. So we both talk quite a bit about Salesforce. So my son is in college, so which means less distraction at home. And right now, COVID-19, you have a lot of time in your hand. So that is something that helps me.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your excellent guidance today, Velu. We really appreciate your time. I would like to close this by mentioning one person. She was in our first admin class, a lady called Suganti Satyamurthy. She's from Pennsylvania. And what she did was, I think about 10 days after the class, sometime in May, she passed the exam, just the basic admin exam. She's a practicing BA and PM. And then she did a seminar, just a 1-hour seminar of her learnings and her experiences in passing the admin. She produced a PDF and published it. So I would urge the people who continue to be in this ecosystem, who are in this class, to please do such sessions and contribute back to the community. Thank you very much. Off to you, Praveen.